Do you know what causes the cracking sound on a bullwhip? What's happening is that the tip of it is looping so fast it actually causes a tiny sonic boom. Pretty cool, huh? Alright, go to File and let's quick load the attachments map. Now in order to tell the cups to attach themselves to the soldier's hands, we're going to need another entity called Logic Auto. This is a very useful entity as it can activate different functions of other entities. So let's go to the Entity tool, and we're going to look for Logic Auto. Select that, then place one of them in your map. Now go to Select, then double click on it. And we want to go to Outputs, then Add. And this has a very useful output. This one right here, on Map Spawn. Select that, and what this means is that as soon as the map starts, it will activate whatever function you want. Your way, right away. Alright, now the entity we want is Cup 1. And we want to set parent attachment. And the parameter we want is cup, even though I wasn't able to show it to you. Now hit apply. Oh, and a quick note, whenever you have a parent attachment like this, you have to specify the parent ahead of time, but we did that with the cups earlier. Okay, now this first cup is all set to be attached to the parent's hand. No matter where your cup is located, it will snap into place as soon as we start the game. Now we still need to do the attachment for the second one, but before we do that, I want to talk about another option here. If you have Half-Life 2 Episode 1 or a later version of the source engine, you have an option called Set Parent Attachment Maintain Offset. Now what this does is that it works in the same way as a parent attachment, except it remembers the position of your object. Again, this cup will snap into place because the NPC model has already been configured that way. But say you wanted to attach an object to a model that didn't have the right attachment point. You could adjust the position ahead of time in Hammer, then tell it to attach when everything was lined up and it would work. Alright, we're not going to do that here, but it's definitely worth knowing. Okay, I'm changing this back to just regular Set Parent Attachment. Now, let's select this output, copy it, then paste it. And now all we have to do is change the entity name to Cup2, and this will be set for the other one as well. Then hit apply. As you may have noticed, I try to take shortcuts like this whenever I can in Hammer, because all these things add up time-wise. Alright, go ahead and close this window. Now we have our cups attaching to the soldiers, but they're not really going to be holding them. By default, they're just going to stand there idling with their arms at their side, meaning if these cups had real liquid in them, they would just spill out, so that's no good. What we need is a way for them to be standing there holding their cups without spilling them. Now lucky for us, the XSI animator who worked on this included an animation like that. We just have to run it. I'm going to use a scripted sequence for this, since it's relatively simple, and I already said I was done with FacePoser in the last section. If I used a scene file here, that would make me a liar, so I don't want that. So click on the Entity tool, and select the Scripted Sequence entity again. And this one you can just place anywhere. We're not going to move them, just animate them. And only put down one for now. I'll explain why in a minute. Now go to the Select tool, then double click on the scripted sequence. First, let's give it a name. I'll call this Script 1. And the next value we care about is Target NPC. We'll go ahead and cover Bob first. Now we need the name of the animation. Unfortunately, we don't know that name yet, so we're going to have to look it up. So press Apply, then close this, and we'll come back to this in just a minute. Now before, we could look up our animation by simply double-clicking on our model, then going to the Models tab. But if we do that here, it's not going to show all our animations because it's still looking at that original Combine model. So we're going to have to do something else. I'm going to temporarily create another prop just so we can preview the correct model. Go and close this window, then go to the Entity tool, and let's create another prop dynamic. Now remember, this is temporary. We're going to delete this once we're done, so don't get too attached to it. Oh god, I just realized that was a pun, considering the topic of this tutorial and all. That was an accident, folks. Sorry about that. It won't happen again. Okay, once your prop has been placed, select and double-click on it. Now go to World Model, Browse. And this time we want Combine. A lot of those, underscore Combine. There we go. So click on him, and notice over here there's a tab for sequences. Click on that. And now we can see all the different animations for this model. And if I recall correctly, the one we want is Combine Idle with Cup. Do you see it? Help me out here, people. Just shout out if I go right by it. Combine Idle with Cup. Oh, come on, it's here somewhere. There it is. Good job. Select that one, and as you can see, that looks like a good animation for holding a cup. So remember that name there. Now close this, then close this, then make sure the entity is selected and delete it. Now, let's head back to our scripted sequence by double-clicking on it. Now you'd think the action animation would be the best place for this, especially since we have the option to loop the action animation over here. You see? We can tell it yes. This would be a good thing because we want to loop this animation. Now let me tell you folks, here's what I don't like about the engine sometimes. I tried looping the animation this way before I even started recording this segment. And what happened was he would play his animation through once, then turn into a perfect statue afterwards. So he would be there holding the cup, but after playing through the animation, he just froze like a rock. You can get away with that from a distance, but up close it doesn't look as good as having an idling animation. So what I found did work was using the post-action idle animation here. So let's type in the name of the animation. Combine _ idle _ with cup. That won't loop it by itself, but we'll fix that in a second. The next thing we want to do is make sure he stands still. If you click on Move Position here, you can see it's set to walk, which is bad. That means he'll turn around and walk to wherever your scripted sequence is located. So we just want to change this to No, then he'll behave. Now we need to go to Flags and I'll show you something else. Now as great and flexible as the engine is, here's what really drives me nuts about working with Source. Sometimes you have options that flat out do not work, and you usually have to find this out the hard way. Without this tutorial, and maybe even with it, learning Source can be the school of hard knocks. Look at this. This option says Start on Spawn. Now in my blurry memory of the past, I remember this function working when you checked it. So in a perfect world, if you check this option, then your sequence will begin as soon as the map started. But again, I tried using this before I started recording, and no, it does not work. For this anyway. He won't lift a finger to play his animation if you use this. So does it work? Maybe sometimes? I don't know. It sure didn't work for this example, I'll tell you that. So we're not going to use this. It makes me mad. We'll activate this a different way. For now, go ahead and click on the option Loop and Post Idle. This feature does work, which is why I like it. This will make our guy play his animation, then keep looping it afterwards. Okay, I think that's it. So go and click on Apply, Close. Now we need to create a new scripted sequence for our other guy. Now we just configured a lot of settings for our first scripted sequence. Instead of doing all that over, let's just select it, then press Ctrl-C to copy this, then Ctrl-V to paste. Now let's double click on this new one, and we'll only have to change a few settings. Now obviously we're going to have to change the name. Do you see how this is in bold text now? That means there's at least one other entity that shares the same name, which can cause problems. So let's just call this Script 2. Hit Apply, and the next setting we need to change is the target NPC. This one will be for Chuck. Hit Apply, and notice it's remembered all the other settings. So that's all we have to do. So just click Close. And now the last step is to tell the scripted sequences to start, since these things are defective and won't do it on their own. To do this, go and double click on the Logic Auto entity again, go to Outputs, then click on Add. And we're going to want On-Map Spawn again, this time Script 1, and we want it to begin sequence. Now copy that, paste it, and just change the name here to Script 2. Now press Apply, and close that. Click on File, Save, then File, Run Map, and click OK.